Hello, scientists. Let's look back at our phenomenon that we're working on for this standard. It says the cafeteria at Micro Elementary School made the 5th graders special treats to celebrate the end of the students' unit on cells. Below are the treats that the cafeteria made for them. We know that our standard this week that we're working on is to be able to create a model to identify and label the parts of a plant cell and to create a model to identify and label the parts of an animal cell. So we're going to be planning and working on actually making a model of a plant cell and an animal cell. And we need to know how to identify and label the different parts, which we call organelles. The organelles are part of the cell. So last week you learned that cells are so small we cannot see them without magnification. The actual scientific term is we cannot see them with the naked eye. We need magnification to be able to see cells. So we are trying to make a model, which is like a replica or a representation of something that we can't even see without magnification. Alright? So we are trying to make something we can't see big enough for people to be able to see it in a model. So the first thing we need to do is we need to know what are the parts of the cells and what do they look like so that we can make our model realistic. So we're going to be going through this gizmo together and actually looking at parts of the animal cell and plant cell. And you're going to be taking notes. You're going to be taking notes as we go through this. So you have two choices. You can either open up the notes and copy them down in your journal, or if you go up here and you make this video smaller, then you can open your notes from your classwork assignment and make it smaller too, and you can actually make the two windows side by side. So I've got your video will be over here, and you can make it bigger so you can see, and then your notes are here for you to type in your observations as we do this. So we're going to be looking at the animal cell first. The first cell, the first animal cell we're going to look at is an animal cell. So I'm going to take a sample, put it on a slide, and put it under the microscope. I can see that this is 1,000 times magnified, and I can increase it to 2,000 times, even to 3,000 times. That's as much as it goes. So over here, I can look at the different parts. I want you to see how many, organelles are in an animal cell. Look at all these different parts. All those different parts. Well, in 5th grade, we're just going to be looking at the cell membrane, the cytoplasm, and the nucleus. And today, all I want to focus on is what do those parts look like. Okay? So we're going to start with the cell membrane. I can see it's pointing to the cell membrane, and it says that it's a protective lipid bilayer surrounding the cell. So I'm going to just look and see what it looks like. Well, I see that it goes all the way around the outside of the cell. Now it looks brown here, but that's not that. They're just used that color so we can see the difference between the other parts of the cell. So I also want to write, it's a pretty thin line around the outside. So I'm going to say small or skinny line around the outside of the cell. And it's almost like a barrier, or almost like a fence. Like a fence around the outside, or like a string. I'm trying to think of what I could use, because later I'm going to think of, well, when I make my animal cell model, what could I use to represent this organelle? What material could I use to be my cell membrane? Well, I'll need something that goes all the way around the cell. So what if I did a cookie like the cafeteria did? If I did a cookie to represent my animal cell, what could I use that could go around the outside of the whole cell and would be like a thin, skinny line? You know those Twizzlers that you can pull apart? I think if I pulled one of those Twizzlers apart, I could put it around the edge of my cookie to show the cell membrane. So I think I'm going to write that for my first idea. Pull apart Twizzler. Okay? Next we're going to look at the cytoplasm. The cytoplasm is pointing to this tan stuff that's all in the middle of the cell. And this definition actually tells me a little bit more about how it looks. It says that it is a jelly-like substance composed mostly of water, and I can see that it fills the cell. So I'm going to start writing. I know that it's jelly-like. So like if I hold Jell-O and jiggle, if I do this, the Jell-O will kind of jiggle. So I'm going to say Jell-O-like and maybe liquidy. Liquid. Kind of liquid, not really a solid, but kind of jiggly and liquidy. And I'm going to say it's made mostly of water. And I notice that it just fills the inside of the cell. So if I were to do the cookie idea, what could I use for the cytoplasm? Well, it's got to be kind of liquidy, kind of not like water, but thicker than water, kind of like Jell-O. And it needs to fill the inside of the cell. Maybe I could use frosting, or somehow maybe Jell-O. So I'm just giving myself some ideas for later when I actually do the plan. Alright, let me pause the video so I can see what's going on with my gizmo. Alright, next I'm going to look at the nucleus. So the nucleus, it looks like it's pointing to this blue sphere ball shape, okay? And that it's in the middle. I notice it's in the middle of the cell, in the middle of all this cytoplasm. Now again, the blue color is just so that we can tell what shape the nucleus is. It also says the nucleus contains the cell's DNA and regulates its gene expression. Okay, well today I'm just focused on what does this nucleus look like? Well, it's a ball or sphere shape, and it is in the middle of the cell, or I could just say inside the cytoplasm. Okay? And then, now let me think about, okay, if I were using a cookie and I was going to use the pull-apart Twizzler for the cell membrane and the Jell-O or the frosting for the cytoplasm, what could I use for the ball to put in the middle of the cell to be the nucleus? Well, have you ever had the candy called Whopper? Whoppers are round chocolate candies, and I think that might be perfect because it looks just like this round shape. Now, they've cut open the round part to show us that inside the nucleus is an even smaller ball, but the nucleus, without being messed with, would be a ball shape or a sphere. So I think I need something with that same shape, so I might use a Whopper. So now I'm going to go through, and you're going to pause the video to write down what you notice about the parts, the organelles of a plant cell. So let me click over to plant. And we're going to be using this pine tree to get a sample of a plant cell. And here is our plant cell, and I can make it 2,000, 3,000, move it around. Oh, well, right off the bat I noticed the nucleus looks the same. So I'm probably going to type the same thing I wrote, and I may even use the same Whopper in my plant cell to show the nucleus. Alright, let's look at the cell membrane first. I want you to pause the video and write what you notice about how this cell membrane looks. The cell membrane is this blue line that goes around the cell. And what might you use to represent the cell membrane in a plant cell? Next, we're going to look at the cytoplasm. The cytoplasm is pointing to that cream, jelly-like substance that fills in the whole cell. So it looks very much the same as the animal cell. So what might you use for the cytoplasm on your plant cell? Next, we're going to look at the nucleus, which we already saw looks the same in the plant cell as it did in the animal cell. So I probably will just use the same Whopper, and I'm going to write my observations here. Now we have the two new organelles, the cell wall. Let's find the cell wall to look at. Here it is, cell wall. So the cell wall is this thick green outer layer that's even outside the cell membrane. So put your observations here, and then I want you to think about what you might use to represent the cell wall on your model. And then the last organelle that's different is the chloroplast. The chloroplasts are these green organelles. I want you to write down what shape you notice they are, what color they are. Let me zoom in. Alright, there's the chloroplast. It says that the chloroplast is what helps the plant do photosynthesis. So it turns the sunlight into energy for the plant. So I want you to write what it looks like and what you might use on your plant cell model to represent the chloroplast. Alright? And when you are finished filling in these notes, you will submit to your teacher in Google Classroom.